Welcome to the Innova podcast, where we share all kinds of tips, advice, and interview guests on all things innovation and leadership in modern marketing. Each episode is a conversation with inspiring people who make wonderful contributions to our knowledge in these areas and spark curiosity and ideas to pursue. Join me, Jürgen Strauss from Innova, and let's get into today's masterclass on this Innova podcast.
It's a really challenging time that we're living in right now as this is being recorded. All of our lives are unfortunately being disrupted. We're addressing the challenges as best as we can in our local communities. It's happening all over the world. You're in Australia, I'm in New York. We're dealing with the same challenges. And people's emotional states are more fragile than they have been. People's financial challenges have increased. And we're dealing with some things that are going to affect people for a while. And I think that right now, brands need to be more authentic and empathetic than ever before. As brands put themselves out there, their role right now is to help the situation as best as they can. It's not a time to be opportunistic. It's not a time to be salesy. It's actually a time to support your customers, to support your communities, and to support your employees. So those are the three things that I think are super important for brands. When it comes to customers needs have changed. And if a brand is there to serve customers' needs, it's time to pivot what you're doing in ways that reflect needs that have emerged.
Hi there, innovator. It's great to be back with another episode. I hope you've had an awesome week so far. And I trust you enjoyed my recent conversations with Chris Yankolowski of Remote Staff and with J. Scott Christensen, expert about all things artificial intelligence. I'm really excited today to have on the Innova Buzz podcast as my guest, Kevin Perlmutter. Kevin is a brand strategist and leadership advisor. As the chief strategist and founder of Limbic Brand Evolution, he helps companies focus their brand strategy, strengthen their customer relationships, evolve business plans, offerings, communications, and customer experience, all through the lens of emotion and motivation to improve brand engagement and customer loyalty. By bringing behavioural science approaches and insights into the work, Kevin is able to create effective and actionable results for his clients. He's fascinated by the science of emotion, its well-documented power, and one question above all others: how do you want people to feel? A quick promotional message from our sponsor, that's Innova, where we help coaches and consultants build professional credibility, engage their target audience, and connect with their ideal client. That requires absolute clarity about who your ideal clients are and how you can help them. To help you get that clarity about your ideal client, take a look at our Marketing Master mini class, where in less than 30 minutes, you'll gain absolute clarity on your ideal client and how you can communicate with them to build and strengthen an engaging, enduring relationship. Access the Marketing Master mini class at innovabiz.co/Marketing Master. It's completely free and accessible without even giving away your email. In our discussion, Kevin talked to me about emotionally connecting with your customers and how to use that emotional connection to uncover unmet and often unconscious needs. We talked about customer experience orchestration. And we talked about finding out what makes you desirable as a brand. Without further ado then, let's fly into the hive and get the buzz from Kevin Perlmutter. Hi, I'm your host Jürgen Strauss from Innova, and I'm really excited to welcome today to the Innova Buzz podcast all the way from New York in the USA, Kevin Perlmutter, who's an emotion-based brand strategist, a leadership strategist and advisor, and chief strategist and founder at Limbic Brand Evolution. Welcome to the podcast, Kevin. It's a real privilege to have you as my guest.
How are you doing today? Thank you so much for having me.
Mark Halpert, who was our guest on episode 258 of the Innova Buzz podcast, suggested that we get you on and have a conversation. So a big hello to Mark.
Yep, I'm so glad he did that.
Yeah. Now, Kevin, emotion-based brand strategist, and I know you're really passionate on having brands deliver really great customer service and customer experiences that are based on emotion and also deliver brand loyalty. So I'm really looking forward to digging into all of that with you today. But before we talk about all things customer relationships and brand strategy and customer experience, give us a bit of a high-level snapshot of your background. How did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, well, I started my career more than 20 years ago in advertising, and I did that for a long number of years. And about a dozen years ago, I left advertising and moved into brand consulting. I became a brand strategist at Interbrand in their New York office, where I was ultimately one of the leaders in the brand strategy group. I led a large piece of business, multiple large pieces of business. And I also was one of the founders of their customer experience practice on a global scale. So I helped to create that practice, and I trained other offices and strategists on how to go about consulting from a customer experience perspective way back before that was a big thing, when it was just emerging. After 7 years at Interbrand, I decided to leave and join an organization that focuses on sonic branding, which is the use of music and sound as an element of brand identity or experience. And I joined that organization to do a couple of different things. One is it's a much smaller organization than any other company I've ever worked for. And I actually went there as the internal business architect. My title when I started was chief strategist. Ultimately, I was chief strategist and chief innovation officer. And I went there to help them evolve their business, grow the business, expand their practice areas, innovate new offerings, and help them better serve their customers or better serve new types of customers in different ways. One of the most incredible things I had the opportunity to do there was learn a lot about behavioral science. And while I was there, I created with an outside partner a research capability rooted in neuroscience that helps assess the impact of sound on emotion and the impact of emotion on behavior. This research capability has been used dozens of times at this music studio. It is a award-winning capability and really gave me a deep understanding of behavioral science and how the brain works and the power of emotion. So about a year ago, I decided to leave this organization and start my own business, which is called Limbic Brand Evolution. And for those who aren't aware, Limbic is the part of the brain that controls emotion, motivation, behavior, and memory. And everything that I'm doing as part of Limbic, leading Limbic, is focused on emotion-based strategy. It takes into account all the things that I did at Interbrand, where I led brand strategy, led customer experience work, and it takes all the things that I did at the music studio, where I was an internal business architect driving company strategy, as well as innovating offerings and understanding the power of emotion.
That's fascinating. So I'm really fascinated by the study into behavioral science and how that impacts emotion. I mean, I think everybody's aware that music can influence emotion, and we can put on an uplifting piece of music when we're feeling down, perhaps to lift our mood, or an inspiring piece of music. I mean, march music or other inspiring piece of music is commonly used to motivate people in group settings. So it's fascinating that you've taken that and applied it in a business sense.
Yeah, well, it was a really important thing that I learned about the power of emotion. And music is certainly one way to affect people at an emotional level. In fact, from a brand identity perspective, it's nearly crucial these days to think about the role that sound plays in your branded environment, because there are so many new technologies like podcasts and digital experiences that you're having where audio becomes a dominant part of the brand experience. And in some of those cases, without an audio identity, your brand is actually invisible. There is no visual identity for some brand experiences that are emerging. But my takeaway from that whole experience was not just that sound is important for brands, but that a focus on emotion and how people react to you at an emotional level is super important. And that's super important for sound, but it goes well beyond sound.
Yeah. Well, Maya Angelou famously said that, people don't remember what you did or how you are, but I'm not sure the exact quote, but they certainly remember how you made them feel.
I love that quote. It's one of my favorites, and I've used it many times.
Yeah. So, you talk about brands and companies existing to make people's lives better, and I don't think anybody really would challenge that, but I think a lot of companies just tackle that from a transactional perspective. They say, we have a great product or we have a great service, and it in and of itself makes your life better if you're the user of that product or service, but they don't focus at all on how they actually make the user of their product or service feel. So in terms of the science of emotion and how a brand can tackle that, what are some of the critical aspects or critical questions that a company could ask itself around how do I determine how I make my customer feel, and how can I build that relationship based on the emotions and the resultant behaviors that come from that?
Yeah, it's a super important area. I really do believe, as you said, that brands should exist to make people's lives better. And as you pointed out, not all brands think about that from all angles. Certainly, it comes from the products and services that they offer, but it also comes with how they treat people in the customer experience. We want to be really sure that brands are thinking at every angle, how do I want people to feel in this moment? And if they're focused on how they want people to feel as a guide for decisions they make about their communications, their customer experiences, the products and services they offer, the innovation paths that they go down, then they're going to be in much better shape serving not only the needs that they're aware of, but uncovering unmet needs or frustrations that their customers are having with products and services or experiences that touch on the same category. So the kinds of questions that I'm thinking about when working with a client, first of all, is from their perspective, what is it as an organization that they are most motivated to do? If they're in the world to make people's lives better, what are they getting up in the morning to do every day? How are they making people's lives better? What are they motivated by? What keeps them going? What has led them to their place in the world where they have products and services that they're putting out there? And I try to make sure that I could help them. I do help them focus on what makes them unique and desirable when I have an opportunity to work with them. On the other side is the customers or the audiences that they want to reach. And the kinds of questions that I'm thinking about there are, what is it that is most important to the people that they want to reach? What are the experiences that they're having? What are the experiences that they're having that are frustrating? What are the needs that they have? What are their unmet needs? Sometimes those unmet needs are subconscious and they're not even actively thinking about it, but there's something bugging them about that experience. And when I bring those two worlds together, in my business, it's what I call limbic sparks. Limbic sparks is a term that I've created for what happens when your audience is emotionally motivated by what you're all about. And that's an incredibly powerful place to be as a brand. If you're all about something in the world and people are excited about it, then that's going to be something where you all come together and great things can happen. They're going to be more interested in your brand, and your brand is going to be better able to serve them. So the kinds of things that I'm looking to figure out once I understand how limbic sparks can happen, what that shared emotional motivation is what is it that your brand could stand for? What is it that your brand should say and do in the marketplace to better serve people when it puts itself out there?
Mm. Yeah, that's a really great approach. And I was reminded as you were telling us how you go about doing the discovery, I guess, of what a brand stands for or what a company stands for and how they want their customers to feel. I was reminded of many times in my corporate career where somebody would say, "Oh, this job would be so wonderful if we didn't have customers." They're obviously frustrated by the response of customers to a certain situation. And if you think about that, people don't want customers to feel bad, because when a customer comes back to the company and says, "I'm unhappy for whatever reason," or "I'm frustrated," or "I'm annoyed with you for whatever reason," that makes everybody's life unpleasant. So I guess what you're saying is, have the company or the brand take responsibility for proactive responsibility for how to make the customer feel.
Definitely.
All right. So tell us a little bit more about how you go about setting up a strategy for that whole emotion-based connection.
Well, I'm looking at a number of things. So the main thing that I'm trying to do is help a brand create desire with a distinct focus on emotion. And the way we go about that is, as I've talked about a little bit already, it's a very inquisitive approach. I'm really looking to understand what's motivating to the organization and what's most motivating to their desired audience. And once we have that information and we can create that shared emotional motivation space, then we're also able to create a strategic platform that allows them to expand all they're doing in the marketplace, whether it's creating new products and services, creating customer experiences, or articulating things through communications. We're able to create a space where they are overtly focused on how they want people to feel and speaking to them in ways that are most relevant, most understanding, and have the most amounts of empathy. And the really good news for brand marketers and brand leaders is that this is one very easy and effective way to address many challenges that brand leaders face. Every year we see the articles in magazines or published online talking about the top challenges that CMOs are facing, the top challenges that brand leaders are facing. And there's a pretty uniform list. It's things like focusing the brand vision and strategy, understanding what motivates customers. It's things like orchestrating a seamless customer experience that's rewarding and fulfilling to people. It's about building loyalty. And also it's about demonstrating ROI to the C-suite. So all of these things that I just mentioned, if you have a foundation, a strategic foundation for your brand that's rooted in how you want people to feel, not only can you address all of these challenges at once, but that last one, the ROI bit, there's already a lot of evidence out there that proves that this is going to be an effective way forward. So a couple of statistics that I like to throw out there. One of them is Forrester, who does a tremendous amount of customer experience work, has documented through years of research that emotion is the most significant driver of loyalty in the customer experience. And they're not the only ones out there who have published this statistic. But all things being equal, how you make someone feel in the customer experience is going to be the largest predictor of their loyalty to your brand. In fact, when you frustrate people or give them a frustrating experience that's unfulfilling, there's another study out there that was done by the CMO Council that says that 47% of people will abandon your brand if they have a frustrating experience or an inauthentic experience. And then on the positive side, there was some work that was published in Harvard Business Review that says that customers who are emotionally connected to your brand, highly emotionally connected to your brand, are 53% more valuable than those who are just highly satisfied. So some brands actually say, yeah, our customers are all highly satisfied. And honestly, that's not enough. Because if they're just satisfied and they're not emotionally connected, then the value isn't there. And the reason why they're so much more valuable is because they really enjoy what they're getting from you. They keep coming back for more. They tell people about it. They're more forgiving when they have a slightly bad experience, and so many other reasons. So when I'm working with brands, it's really important to help them think about all of these different ways that focusing on emotion and how you want people to feel should be at the center of what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of great studies there that kind of support that whole argument. And I think for me, the story or the example in the kind of consumer world that highlights this is Apple. I mean, there's some technical arguments that say, you can kind of take the view that Android devices have actually overtaken Apple from a technology standpoint and from what they can actually achieve transactionally, if you like. And yet, every time a new iPhone comes on the market, the people queue up outside the Apple stores worldwide for hours before the store opens. And I remember I was in Sydney a little while ago during the last launch, I think, and it was the day of the last launch. I thought, what's going on here? The queues of people going around the block, and I realized there was an Apple store there, and there must have been about 1,000 people queued up before that. So I think they've kind of got this aspect nailed, haven't they?
Yeah, Apple has been doing this well for quite some time, as you've noted, and they really, they do have people locked in. Some of that is the ecosystem, I believe. People are reluctant to change ecosystems if their life has been stored up on Apple. But I think more than that, people are genuinely emotionally motivated by Apple products. You are either a Mac person or you're a PC person, as the old advertising campaign goes. And people who are Mac people are proud of it. And they're, as you just pointed out, they're more forgiving of an experience that's not as ideal because they have such passion for the brand, and they surround themselves with Apple products in their life, and it keeps going. And they have this perpetual cycle of improvements that people keep paying for.
So how can a brand sort of explore and begin to understand their clients' emotions that impact their behavior, right? And particularly, I guess, you talked earlier about understanding the client from an emotional aspect. So I'm guessing the first step, and this is something that's really key to our process, is the first step is to know who your ideal client actually is. But then having done that, how do you get to their emotions that impact their behavior, particularly their buying behavior related to your brand?
I think there's a lot of ways to go about it, and the amount of work you have to go through kind of depends where you are in your brand or product life cycle and what it is you're actually doing. So there are a lot of brands out there that are probably just missing the mark a little bit. They haven't thought about things from this vantage point yet, and they've been working really hard to put themselves out there. And maybe they're talking a little bit too much about themselves as opposed to focusing on the needs that their clients have or their customers have. So in those situations, maybe it's just a change in perspective, and it's really listening to and understanding what people are wanting or needing. Or maybe even people who have experienced your brand are already very enamored by it, but you want to expand your audience and you're not actually highlighting the things that people love so much. So it could just be evaluating what you have going on and pivoting your approach. There are other brands where maybe it's a little bit more difficult. Maybe you're in a new category, maybe you're an innovator and you want to actually come up with a new way of serving customers in a particular category. In those cases, you need to dig a little bit deeper. You might want to do some consumer research. That could either be qualitative research, where you're having one-on-one conversations or focus group conversations with the kinds of people that you want to reach, or maybe you want to do some survey-based research with open-ended questions, or potentially even do some research that includes some neuroscience-based techniques or some behavioral science-based techniques, where you're asking non-overt questions in ways where you're getting them to open up about their feelings about something without them even realizing that they're doing it. And from that, you're understanding unmet needs, latent needs, things that people wish for but don't even know to articulate. And in those cases, you could really uncover some gems about how to turn a category upside down and figure out how to serve needs in new ways.
Mm-hmm. And that's also a really good way to get at needs that might be unconscious at that point in time, right?
Definitely. There are lots of techniques that allow you to assess the subconscious through research. In the early stages of understanding or identifying needs, you might turn to a technique that uses imagery and focuses on metaphors around that imagery. So you can be responding to how it makes you feel. How do you want to feel when you're driving an automobile? And there could be a photo sort, and you pick a photo, and then you start talking about why that photo represents the way you would want to feel. And for some people, maybe you'll pick a photo that represents some sort of safety, and it talks all about, and you start getting into the details of safety. For other people, it might be something that represents raciness or riskiness, and that might be somebody who's more into fast moving vehicles on highways with lots of curves. It's kind of my take on things.
Yeah.
But you can use imagery to get at what people are feeling. And you'll get deeper than if you ask them overtly what they think of specific vehicles or types of vehicles, because they're not really anticipating why the questions are being asked in a way where they're going to be inhibited to give their true answers. As you move further down the development path, maybe there's concepts that you want to evaluate. You want to understand the associations that people have with between certain brands and certain concepts. And there's different types of research techniques, and a subconscious research technique that I really like is implicit association testing. And implicit association testing attempts to understand, or not attempts is the wrong word, it successfully understands the strength of an association that you have with a particular concept, or the strength of association between concepts. It helps understand if things are making sense and positive, or if things are confusing and distant or dissonant at a subconscious level. So all of these techniques can really help you understand what people are feeling and understanding, and they're becoming, as popular and as easy to execute as traditional research these days.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? The whole idea of behavioral science and how that applies in marketing. I think there's, fundamentally for me, it's always been a key part of marketing, but now, as you've outlined it, we're looking not just at behaviours, but at what's driving behaviours and how emotion is such a key part of that. Why do you think brand leaders kind of ignore or kind of set aside emotion when they're putting together their brand strategy or their marketing strategies?
I don't know. I mean, it's an incredible missed opportunity. And the evidence is out there. There are statistics out there that I've already talked about that prove that emotion is the most significant driver of brand loyalty. And there are so many bits of evidence to support that a focus on emotion can actually help achieve so many different challenges successfully, or overcome challenges successfully in brand leaders' work. It is a bit baffling to me that most are not taking advantage of the opportunity to focus on emotion as they set out their plans and strategies.
And the other thing, I mean, you mentioned earlier about customer journey a little bit. I mean, one of the fascinating things for me is that, particularly as a marketer, a lot of marketers look at the customer journey as, my responsibility is having our ideal clients find us and convincing them that we have a good product, and perhaps even the sales part. And once that sale is completed, the marketer says, "Oh, my job's done," and they forget about the rest of the customer journey, which is where the experience is starting to come in even more. So then the experience becomes not just the communication and the interactions that I, as a consumer, has had with that brand, but then it's what's my experience in using the product or service, and what am I going to do as a result of that experience? Who am I going to talk to and tell about my experiences? And, what's the impact of that going to be on the image of that brand?
You're raising such an important point right now, and it's why customer experience orchestration is becoming or has become such an important part of any brand leader's total purview. I think that any brand that's still focused on customer experience being spread across multiple leaders in the organization, they're kind of fooling themselves, because the most important thing you can do is create a brand experience that is consistent across the entirety of the organization. And when I say consistent, I'm not saying it has to be the same. I'm saying it has to feel like it's coming from the brand. That brand has a point of view. That brand should know how it wants people to feel. And somebody in a centralized post at that company should be responsible for identifying what customers should be feeling at each point in the journey and making sure that the right things are in place so that that occurs, regardless of whether it happens at a acquisition phase, at a sales phase, or at a fulfillment phase, or if it's happening on the phone or on the internet or in person. Regardless of when and where it happens and what stage of the customer's life cycle that it's in, that customer shouldn't feel like they're dealing with different brands at different points in the experience.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, and it kind of starts with every little message that the consumer would see from that company. So whether it's a billboard advertisement, or whether it's a radio or TV advertisement, or whether it's a blog post they've written, or whether it's a video they've seen of them doing online as part of their marketing, or as we've been talking about now, in the post-purchase experience, what's their experience? If something goes wrong with the product, what's their experience with the customer service and technical service aspect? What's their experience with, if it's an ongoing payment system, what's their experience with, the payment system itself and how they pay? What's their experience if they have questions and ask for help?
I agree completely.
So do you see large companies implementing a role like that in their organizations?
I've definitely seen that trend over the last several years. There are many more chief customer experience officers than there have been before. And I think it's a really good thing for the brand and marketing industry.
Yeah. So everybody can be a CEO.
I guess so.
Yeah, customer experience officer.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where I think within a company, everybody really is a customer experience officer, and everybody should
You have to
on
be.
board.
Yeah. Everybody's responsible for making sure that customers have a great experience. I mean, you said something earlier that there used to be a time where people were like, if we didn't have customers, everything would be great. And I think that time is so long gone.
Yeah.
People have to recognize that customer comes first, and understanding what that customer needs is the best way to evolve your business. And organizations that have healthy customer experience ecosystems are also the organizations where everybody in the company understands their role in serving that customer, and how that role needs to be changed or evolved depending upon what type of customer they're dealing with at that point in time. And the good news is that when employees are engaged in understanding what the business and brand is all about, engaged in serving customers, and doing so in a way that's productive and healthy, that also will lead to ROI for the business, because those employees will actually be more passionate. They will recommend more products. They will be more suggestive to customers about things that they might not be aware of. And they will create better, more positive experiences that actually improve the customer experience as well. And again, leads to more positive experiences, leads to more loyalty.
Well, that brings up a point that I was going to explore with you as well. And was it Richard Branson that said, take care of your employees and they'll take care of your customers? So this whole concept of emotion, connecting emotionally with people and understanding what emotions you want them to feel that drives their behavior can be applied to your employees as well, can't it? So
definitely.
Well, first of all, if you take on board that taking care of your employees and they'll take care of customers, is true, then that's certainly something we want to look at. Secondly, it sets the model, doesn't it? It sets the model for how you want people to interact with the outside world as well, with customers.
It really does. How your employees feel about the company they're working for is a direct reflection on how they act toward and for that company on the outside.
So what are some of the steps? I mean, it's probably similar things, but what are some of the steps a company can take for its employees internally to build that emotional connection and to set the whole scene that we're a company that cares about people's emotions?
I think it's important to, once again, coming back to that strategic foundation for what your brand stands for in the marketplace. All brands should have that strategic foundation set. And when they work with me, it comes from a place of emotional motivation, both the motivation of the business as a whole and the motivations of the customers that they want to reach. So if people understand where they're at in that, where the intersection of emotion lies and motivation lies, then they can serve customers in ways that support the mission. And if the mission is to treat customers a certain way, to make sure they feel a certain way, to make sure that they're getting served in a certain way, then they're going to have the tools to be happier and better employees because they're going to feel in control. They're going to know what they're supposed to be doing every day. They're going to have direction. They're going to know what customers need from them and how to make sure that they prioritize their time to get the right work done. It is really one of those virtuous cycles that also has ROI benefit. If your employees understand what the company stands for and know how to serve customers, and the training is there so that they're very clear on what everything stands for and what their role is in that process, then customer experiences are going to be improved. So when I'm working with clients to help them evolve their brand, their strategic brand platform, certainly we're looking at things from what customers will be experiencing and feeling coming out of that brand. But one of the most important first steps before that launches is to make sure that the employee base is on board with what the brand stands for and how they're going to deliver on that. Because if you just put promises out there in advertising, but it's not being delivered through the customer experience, then you're going to be missing a huge opportunity and actually creating false expectations in the marketplace.
Yeah.
So it has to start with the employee base.
Now, one of the questions I have, as we're speaking right now, we're in early April of 2020. So I think that what we're talking about here is a really timeless concept. But as we are in early April 2020, we're all still all around the world in various forms of lockdown due to the COVID-19 situation. How do you think the whole approach to helping brands build that emotional connection both internally and externally, how's that going to be helpful in coming out of this post-COVID-19 economic world, if you like?
Yeah, it's a really challenging time that we're living in right now as this is being recorded. All of our lives are unfortunately being disrupted. We're addressing the challenges as best as we can in our local communities. It's happening all over the world. You're in Australia, I'm in New York. We're dealing with the same challenges. And people's emotional states are more fragile than they have been. People's financial challenges have increased. And we're dealing with some things that are going to affect people for a while. And I think that right now, brands need to be more authentic and empathetic than ever before. As brands put themselves out there, their role right now is to help the situation as best as they can. It's not a time to be opportunistic. It's not a time to be salesy. It's actually a time to support your customers, to support your communities, and to support your employees. So those are the three things that I think are super important for brands. When it comes to customers needs have changed. And if a brand is there to serve customers' needs, it's time to pivot what you're doing in ways that reflect needs that have emerged. So if you are a restaurant and you're not able to serve people in your restaurant, then you need to find ways to get the food out to your customers. You need to look into opportunities to create meal packages that they can purchase from home and have delivered or come pick up curbside. If you're a business that is a service business and you're serving your financial services clients or your business consulting clients or your insurance clients or whatever it is you're doing as a professional, if you're serving your clients now, you need to be assuring them that things are going to be okay if they can be okay, and helping them navigate the difficult situations that they're dealing with confidence. So perhaps you're pivoting from in-person meetings once every 6 or 12 months to having a weekly or bi-weekly webinar or dial-in Zoom session where your clients can get access to the latest information and ideas and strategies that will help them move forward. So that first piece, pivoting to serve your customers given their new needs, is incredibly important. The second piece that I mentioned is around serving your community, and it's around paying it forward to serve your community as best as possible. So getting back to those restaurants that I mentioned, their business is down, but if they have the opportunity, there are some great things that have been put in place where restaurants are now serving first responders and hospital workers. So restaurants are able to use their excess capacity to actually get food out to those who need it and don't have the means or the ability to prepare their own foods. A lot of that is happening on the backs of those restaurants who are trying to survive, yet putting in their own dollars to pay for that food. And there have also been a lot of charities set up where money is being collected and being distributed to those restaurants to offset those costs. So on the other examples are brands that have converted production factories to create things that are needed, whether it's LVMH creating hand sanitizer or different production factories that are now creating ventilators or different things. Paying it forward to society is super important. People see big brands, they expect that they have the ability to do more than just be quiet. And brands can actually put themselves out there in ways that'll help people and their communities. The third thing is around employees. People are losing their jobs. I don't know exactly what's happening in Australia, but I could tell you that the unemployment rate in the United States has skyrocketed in the last 2.5 weeks. And there are a lot of people out there that need support. So brands that are able to help their employees navigate this situation with empathy are really doing the right thing. Understanding that business survival is certainly important. Treating the people who work hard for you today and every day is also really important. And huge brands that are perceived to have deep pockets, who are caught in the act of doing the wrong thing and treating their employees poorly during this time, are going to pay a price for it. In my view, the situation we're dealing with the coronavirus right now is actually going to call attention to brands that are doing the right thing and brands that are doing the wrong thing. And I think that long term, there's going to be a recalibration of brand loyalties based on what people observe during this time frame. It's a little too soon to talk about brand loyalty, but I do think that brands will be remembered for what good or bad they do during this challenging time period, and it will help them or hurt them in terms of their customer base in the future.
Yeah, I think coming back to the simple concept of doing the right thing, and in this current situation, it's sort of highlighted because it's much more evident. It's easy to do the right thing when times are good, and kind of it doesn't hurt the bottom line, if you like, of the company. But when times are tough and there is perhaps a short-term cost to doing the right thing, that's where those that have empathy and have this servant's heart, if you like, and are concerned about the welfare of others around them and also the broader community, that's when it becomes a lot more evident.
Yeah.
I'm seeing quite a few examples like that are just in the television advertising that you see happening here in Australia right now, where one of the supermarkets, for example, it's a smaller national brand supermarket. It's not one of the big ones. And I saw a second one yesterday doing the similar advertising. So the first one was they were talking about, look after the elderly because they're finding it tough in this situation. So, and they're saying, here's what we're doing to make it easier for the elderly, but, please help us. And they're addressing their customers. So I thought that was, and basically they were advertising their supermarket, but they were doing it in a way that was reflective of the current situation and also that was contributing to people's behaviour towards the elderly and other people that were struggling in the current situation. And the other one I saw also, one of the second supermarkets was they were highlighting from through their supply chain, through their employees. They sort of had one person to represent the forklift driver, one person to represent the person collecting the eggs, and one person to represent the forklift driver loading the trucks, and one person representing their checkout person, saying, or thank you to so-and-so, and they'd have a name. There'd be somebody with a name and they'd say, thank you for doing what you're doing right now in this situation and going above and beyond. So they were, again, advertising, but saying, there's all these people that are doing extra special efforts to help serve our customers. So I thought that was a really good example of that. Whereas the other one is, advertisements that are running that are like pretending as if nothing's happened. They're just the standard advertisement. Come and buy our stuff or come and use our stuff.
Yeah. It's not a good time to ignore the situation or be tone deaf. It's definitely the right time to take in the situation, understand how you want people to feel, and act accordingly.
All right. Or one of the other things, we'll talk about innovation in our innovation round in a moment. But what do you think the role of emotion is in innovation?
I kind of think it's essential. I mean, I think that innovation is all about serving unmet needs. And if you truly want to be innovative in a way that's successful, you're going to have to understand what people are missing in their lives or identify something that they would be thrilled to have that they didn't even know they wanted and create it from there. So if you're going about innovation from the perspective of what we can do that we're good at without taking into the account what people need and desire, you're going to probably be missing a mark a little bit.
All right. Well, let's move on to the buzz, which is our innovation round. And I think you might have already touched on question number one, but it's the buzz is designed to help our audience who are primarily innovators and leaders in their field with some tips from your experience. So there's 5 questions and hopefully you'll give us some really insightful answers that'll inspire our audience to go and do something really awesome today. So the number one question, what do you think is the most important thing anyone needs to do to be more innovative?
I think it's about seeking inspiration. Seeking inspiration is how you go about absorbing lots of information, take on board things from multiple perspectives, and it gives you the opportunity to form new ideas and come up with things in unexpected ways.
And how do you seek inspiration? What are some of the things you suggest?
Well, it's looking out at the world around you, and it's about reading a lot. It's about being a student of how people are experiencing situations. So if you get really specific into a product category or a service category, you really want to be observant and understand what's going on in that category.
All right. And what's the best thing you've done to develop new ideas?
I really think it's about creating a simplified approach. It's about creating a simplified approach to brand strategy that is distinctly focused on emotion and motivation. Throughout my career, I've been part of tons of brand strategy work. I've led a lot of brand strategy work. And I feel like I finally have come up with something that is easy to work with, doesn't overwhelm clients with a ton of excess information that doesn't really get used as it should. And if you focus on what a brand cares about most and what customers care about most, you're going to find some real gold at that intersection, which I call limbic sparks. And that's when your audience is emotionally motivated by what you're all about.
All right, that's great. I love that answer. Now, do you have a favorite resource that you use most often?
I like the idea of an empathy map. There are many versions of empathy maps, but My favorite approach is to understand all about the brand that I'm working with and understand how the customers that they're reaching or trying to reach successfully are interacting with that brand, and looking for key moments in that experience, and understanding how you want people to feel at each of those moments. And that creates a holistic picture of what the brand can be doing, not only across the board, but at each moment to ensure that it's serving people successfully.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of empathy maps. We use them all the time to start off our understanding of ideal customer, or for podcasts, ideal audience member. And you mentioned earlier about using imagery to do some research. So do you use imagery on empathy maps?
Sometimes, if it seems like the right thing to do for a particular challenge, I've brought in imagery, and it does work very well. Do you do that as well?
Yeah. I get my clients to actually draw things on there, and
Oh, wow, that's really cool. That's
it's
neat.
quite impressive. You certainly get, it generates, and then I get them to explain what they've drawn. So, and then we
Oh, that's wonderful.
record what they explain. So, typically somebody might have some stick figures on there, or other people I've seen people draw some works of art. I sort of love to take them away and frame them. But the important thing is getting them then to explain what it is they've drawn, what does that image mean, and recording those thoughts down, because that really gets into a much deeper level, I find, than if you just sort of write down words, or if I'm doing it for them to write down and record the words.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
So what's the best way to keep a project on track?
I always like to get stuff done. So I like to bring a sense of urgency to the work that I'm doing. I feel like if things aren't moving fast enough, then we're missing opportunities. So I definitely have a lot of empathy around my clients' internal demands and timetables within their organization. And I'm going to adjust any timetable to suit their desired pace and needs. But my going in instinct is always to work with a sense of urgency to keep things moving.
Yeah, and looking at what's the next step we can take to keep things going forward.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, and what's the number one thing anyone can do to differentiate themselves?
I think it's about finding something you're passionate about and being the best at it.
Yeah, I think that's a really good combination, the two things, isn't it? Sort of the dedication to be the best at what you're really passionate about. All right. Well, thanks, Kevin. This has been really wonderful. I sort of loved having the conversation, and I could talk about human behavior all day, and how that impacts on the whole customer journey. And it's been fabulous. So where can people find out more about the work you do and about you, and maybe even reach out and say thank you for what you've shared with us today?
Thank you for having me. It's really been a wonderful conversation, and I've enjoyed getting to know you through this podcast and previous discussions. If people want to reach out to me, they can find me in a variety of places. One is my website, which is limbicbrandevolution.com, and that's spelled Limbic, brandevolution.com. My email address is kevin@limbicbrandevolution.com. And you can find me on LinkedIn, Kevin Perlmutter, Perlmutter.
Great. And we'll put all the links for those in the show notes so that people can click straight through. Now, is there a parting piece of advice you'd like to leave our listener with today?
Yeah, I think for brand leaders, it's time to get serious about emotion. It's really important as a brand leader, for ROI purposes and other important things that you're trying to accomplish, to focus on how it is you want people to feel, and let the answer to that question be your guide for the work that you do.
Yeah, that's wonderful advice. And I think it kind of encapsulates what we've been talking about today in the conversation. Finally, Kevin, who would you like me to chat with on a future InnovaBuzz podcast, and why?
Something, I don't have anyone in mind, but I have a lot of people who I can refer your way, and I will think about that list and get back to you on it.
Great. We'll look forward to that. So thanks so much for sharing your time and your insights with us today, Kevin. I've really enjoyed having the conversation with you. I felt really great during the conversation, which is
Thank you.
What we've been talking about a lot. And I wish you all the best. Stay safe in this crazy time, and all the best for the future. And let's keep in touch.
Most certainly. Thank you so much, Jürgen.
I hope you enjoyed that fascinating and engaging conversation with Kevin and took something away from his episode. The idea of building the concept of customer experience orchestration into everyone's job role was a big takeaway for me. And of course, the empathy mapping use really resonated, as we're already using those for our work with clients at InnovaBiz. I'd love to know what you took away from Kevin's episode. Leave a comment below the blog post, which you can find at innovabiz.co/Kevin Perlmutter. That is KEVINPERLMUTTER. All lowercase, all one word, innovabiz.co/Kevin Perlmutter. You'll also find contact information for getting in touch with Kevin there, as well as links to the Limbic Brand Evolution website, his social media pages, and the other resources we spoke about in today's conversation. Kevin suggested we have a conversation with Rebecca Arbona of Brand True on a future InnovaBuzz podcast episode. So Rebecca, keep an eye on your inbox for an invitation from us to the InnovaBuzz podcast, courtesy of Kevin Perlmutter. Remember to check out our Marketing Master mini class at innovabiz.co/Marketing Master. It's completely free and accessible without even giving away your email. But most importantly, it will enable you in less than 30 minutes to gain absolute clarity about who your ideal client is and how you can communicate with them to build and strengthen an engaging, enduring relationship. And if you'd like our help to go even deeper into marketing mastery, or our help with producing your very own podcast, even launching your very own podcast if you don't yet have one, then send me an email to jurgen@innovabiz.co and we can set up a quick call to have a short conversation and find out whether we're a good fit for one another. Tune in again to the next episodes of the InnovaBuzz podcast, where we've got some more fantastic guests lined up, including Anthony Sarandria, the founder of SiteFlood, and Odette Barry of Odette & Co. Stay connected with us by subscribing to the InnovaBuzz podcast at innovabuzz.com/subscribe. innovabuzz.com/subscribe. Make sure you never miss another episode. It would also mean a lot to me if you leave us a review, because what you think matters. I'd love to hear your thoughts, your ideas, your suggestions, or questions you have, so go ahead and share them in the comments below the blog post for this episode. Until next time, I'm Jürgen Strauss from InnovaBiz. Remember, be awesome and keep innovating.